Synergetic Century, June 4th, 2017. Omniscient Universe Church, 30. Political religion superiority is anti-true democracy. Synergetics is conceptual. It makes it possible for human intellection to teach itself some fundamentals of nuclear physics and nature's coordinate system, which is what I have been doing for decades, ever since I happened upon R. Buckminster Fuller's publication. This was entirely without what eventually became experientially clear to me correlating to writing and referencing synergetics, while intuitively following a course I must have initiated as a child when I differentiated God from religion. I have in the process found the most accurate word for God, and it is omniscient. I spell it in the lower case, not with uppercase letters, because the eternal mind is not physical, but metaphysical. From all that I gather, the omniscient mind does not need to capitalize by gaining an advantage over any human, nor by profiting thus at the expense of our humanity, while promoting God as a punitively designated authority that in the worst extreme decapitates limbs and human heads, and in the most benign effects loves its fellow man. Religion-abiding authority imprisons humans in any way its superiority deems necessary to teach those who misbehave a long-lasting lesson. Supposedly, such treatment is necessary for exemplifying how bad it can really get if the person, young or old, dares not obey the religion laws, the justice that must be served, the superiority that must be held in highest possible reverence. It is a political religion authority. This has gone on for hundreds of years, despite not one iota of scientific evidence that all those tactics eventually demonstrate a better world results when not caring enough about the total picture, all that is inadvertently involved for everyone, everywhere, accordingly. Religions conveniently sidestep any accountability to the economic and other inadvertencies, as nations under their laws are often as poverty-stricken as the third world countries. Religions choose instead to pay no attention to the economy of doing more with less, which is ephemeralization, while they position their caring side amongst the poor, serving the poor at one level of the social-political stratum, while playing politics in the grandest halls of highest influence, which is a blatant demonstration of contradictory values, when in truth humans do not require religion at all in order to survive except in such self-other deluding circles. The full title of Bucky Fuller's 2-volume book is Synergetics: Explorations in the Geometry of Thinking. My experience of synergetics is that it must be uniquely referenced by the individual. It is the individual whose particular experiences and concerns naturally are about what is prevalently on its mind as a local problem to be solved. To me, a very huge problem, which is manifold and has perpetuated disinformation for thousands of years, is religion. Yes, of course, religion is a taboo subject. People are not supposed to have an objective view of religion as a problem-making system. But over the centuries, and despite the superficial benevolent side of its complicated mind-controlling personality, religion is not a scientifically based education, and surely it in no way can be considered a subset of our whole humanity, so that the narrowing political correctness can remain affixed to belief system tolerances while incorrectly identifying religion belief systems as a subset of us, while never realizing subsets of generalized conceptioning. Universe, after all, is the ultimate collective concept. It embraces all intelligible evolutionary events. The evolutionary events are not only conceptual, they are inherently separate, occurring always and only through differentiating considerations. Such considerations progressively isolate the component of whole and inclusive sets and subsets. Synergetics 307.01. Doing so does not qualify religion as a subset of our whole humanity, and how human intellect can identify our individuality as a whole being, a human of a mind. It is universe's eternal, omniscient mind. Religion is an irrelevant contrivance that resulted as a political countermeasure to defeat and control the ruling royalty, who eventually had to admit the God of religion as a more powerful omnipresence, despite no proof of it, other than what the highest priests and prophets declared exclusively in their hands as the Word of God a very long time ago. For this reason, among many comprehensively considered reasons, my intuition about what I have observed over my lifetime is that the omniscient mind and what humans call God can be comprehensively differentiated from religion. Awareness of this differentiation convinces me that religion is irrelevant. Static and irrelevancies are the same. Synergetics 509.10. The omniscient mind's universe is not a human invention, as is religion and what it promotes as God, and so human intellect must always ask more questions, look for the underlying order which religion tends to dismiss as irrelevancies to its rites and rituals, and all else that can seem to be so much more worthy than truth, which is cosmically total. This is not to say that religion does not serve a purpose for those who do not think deeply and who want one book to do their thinking for them that was written hundreds and thousands of years ago, despite that its doctrines generate and regenerate aspects of the slave mentality. For this reason, my intellect must delve into what can supplant the relative insanity that is legally sanctioned and accepted by everyone on earth, apparently, as it supplants individual thought. This occurs to the indoctrinated who adjust their thought to what typically derives from someone's ancient perspective, for many rationalized justifications correlating to controlling human behavior and what the particular religion deems to be a punitive advantage for its authority to keep people suppressed and indoctrinated. It is as if there is no such thing as awareness of self and otherness as an integral function of our highly intelligent human species in universe. Since we are the humans of a mind, so it must be eternal and omniscient, not from and for someone's authoritarian political religion superiority, mind-controlling system of humanly contrived laws. My intention is to obsolete religion within the synergetic century concurs with the definition of a system as the first subdivision of the finite universe, which is conceptual. It is a non-unitary and non-simultaneous conceptuality of the universe, subdivided thus into all that is outside the system and all that is inside the system, whereby the remainder constitutes universe itself. It is the system alone that is conceptual for the conceptual moment. Synergetics 252.26. Besides, thought is systemic. Thoughts belong to universe. Thought is not a religion. The minimum thinkable set is not religion-based. It is a conceptuality of the minimum structural system of universe without contradictory impositions that have been devised by disinformation that expect humans to agree with the false premises simply because it is within a religion context that places God at the apex of the hierarchical power plays. Thought begins, by the way, as two spheres come together, as intellect's metaphysical generalized conceptioning field recognize the eternal patterning integrity as it comes to its interpretive mind. The cosmic totality of the omniscient mind's universe is never withheld from religion, yet in order to survive, religion systems that were established before and as of the AD calendar and again in later centuries dare not change its established doctrines its referential basis, despite the harm that it does to the human psyche, that is designed to do its own thinking. Humans have been included in the omniscient universe, designed thus to gather information, solve local problems in support of universal integrity, and eventually to comprehend the most economical way of behaving relative to unity and self in universe. Religion cannot accomplish what otherwise is designed as a function of universe. Some religions are more enslaving. They obligate human intellect to follow scheduled prayers. It can be from 1 day a week on the Sabbath, up to 5 times per 24-hour cycle, surrendering its own mind, its entire being, its conceptual reasoning faculty of thought, to the particular system, whose credibility rests on a self-proclaimed prophet so long ago that newly arriving generations must be corralled like sheep in a pen to become members of the shepherd's flock. Well, it seems harmless enough, but then why is any faith-based belief system holding the reins, controlling populations and voting numbers? Why are some reactionary mindsets willing to commit suicide as human bombers into the crowd of innocent people? What in the universe could provoke such behavior and still be accredited as a relatively benign, best-intending education system? Yes, education system, because religion is synonymous with education, teaching, disciplining, everything other than a self-education, which is what Synergetics makes possible for us to teach ourselves. My research writing projects this objective as a living example, not as an indoctrinating church, which is difficult to explain because I have founded Omniscient Universe Church from an intuitive understanding that on one hand must obsolete a very powerful system, and on the other offering the possibility of a substitute context, which is a church, not a religious stained glass edifice with steeples and spires, domes and all else that signifies a traditional representation of a religious institution. The universe is not an institution. My church is simply a conceptual replacement for the obsolete structures and that obsolete way of enslaving the human mind. Even those who love religion would never think of it that way. But then, they seem also unable to introduce alternative options to the religion problem, particularly the Islamic extremists that are terrorizing the world. What else can anyone expect from a suppressed individuality that is violated by religion, never fully realizing the otherwise inherently inviolable integrity of the individual? The individual wants to liberate its own individuality from the enslavement, and enough so that he can be persuaded, as we have observed, to commit terrorizing acts for the promised rewards, never stipulating what freedom its heart and mind long to experience because its mind is programmed as a slave to the belief system. The indoctrination of the extremists comes from the same referential basis, albeit modified. Such intensity where Allah and death, sacrificing self and others, and absolute surrender differ to some degree, but actually, from inception, conception is always an impending catastrophe that can occur anywhere at any time in any century, wherever the belief system survives. It survives to accomplish its primarily physical objectives as the key to Allah's paradise. Let's not kid us about the mindsets that learn how to be so indifferent to living a long-lasting lifetime and prefer the promises after death that drives a terrorizing momentum. It has gotten so bad that people who typically hold a political religion position tend to dominate freedom of speech, literally controlling it by subtle degree, setting the tone for unrest from a superiority bias as shown on CNN May 4th, hunting for President Trump's religious roots, God on the dawn. And also on CNN, America's most powerful Jewish woman, rising anti-Semitism puts Ivanka Trump's faith in the spotlight. What's going on there? Really? Like the plague, terrorism, religion perpetuating bias will not go away. Drastic measures like obsoleting religion is not to be scoffed at, given a reasonable amount of time to accomplish the mission in the synergetic century. This is by educating us about nature's coordinate system as a viable new start in this direction, with true democracy in mind throughout the entire transformation. Thank you.